community.
We're back with more of Today on this Thursday morning. That's a live shot right now of Heathrow Airport on this Thursday morning, the 10th of August, 2006. Heathrow, of course, in London, where 21 people were arrested overnight after British authorities uncovered a terror plot to blow up airliners headed from the UK to the US. And if you think it's only affecting things in London, this is a live shot of BWI Airport in Baltimore, Maryland. If you're traveling today anywhere in the United States or internationally and you go to an airport, you can expect lots of delays, long lines at security checkpoints. That's the scene at BWI. Travel has been severely disrupted because of this alleged terror plot.
That's right. The U.S. government has prohibited travelers from bringing any liquids or any beverages, including hair gels and lotions, onto any flights because of the concern about explosives.
Meanwhile, on a Thursday morning, I'm Matt Lauer along with Ann Curry. Let's begin to get more on this story, and for that, let's go down to Washington. NBC's chief White House correspondent David Gregory is there. And David, let's talk about the angle of this story, the cooperation and the coordination between the UK and the U.S.
Well, it's been substantial, Matt. White House officials saying that Prime Minister Blair briefed President Bush in the last few days. They spoke as recently as last night as British authorities moved in to make these 21 arrests to disrupt this bombing plot, though still concerned about whether it's been completely frustrated. Over weeks, even months, this has been an operation that has involved the sharing of intelligence and information between British and U.S. authorities. But White House officials tell us this morning that it was only within the last few days that this went from at least the assumption of a UK-based bombing plot to one that involved American targets, which is to say American airliners originating from the UK and going to destinations in the United States, major cities, major destinations for travelers, particularly during these summer months. So that's when that level of intelligence became even more intense in terms of the intelligence sharing and the coordination. Homeland Security Secretary Michael Chertoff saying this morning that there is no evidence at this point that points to any U.S. support for this operation, though they do believe this has all the hallmarks of an al-Qaeda operation, given how sophisticated it was, given how international it was in scope, how many people were involved, and he made it very clear that this operation was in the final stages of being executed. Let's listen to Secretary Michael Chertoff from earlier this morning.
We believe that the arrests in Britain have significantly disrupted this major threat. But we cannot assume that the threat has been completely thwarted or that we have fully identified and neutralized every member of this terrorist network. And what is important here is that we are taking every prudent step to thwart new tactics of terror. Today, air traffic is safe.
Yeah, that's the conclusion from Secretary Chertoff, but there will be a number of measures that are put into place. And before we get to that, Matt, it's worth pointing out that the way they thought this would all happen is that the plotters, the bombers, would get on board these planes and use a kind of bomb kit, individual ingredients that they could assemble on board the planes to blow the planes up. White House officials saying they have not seen this level of sophistication or the scale of a potential attack since 9/11, so this was indeed significant. And as you have been reporting, Matt, the kinds of delays we're talking about will be because there's a heightened level of alert for all air traffic coming from the UK into the United States. And anybody traveling who goes to an airport today is going to experience new rules. You can't bring any liquids, no gels, anything like that through a security checkpoint. So you can't carry on any of that in your luggage, and they're going to be stepping up the screening to see what's in your bag to make sure you don't have those items or any electronic gear as well, your BlackBerry, your mobile phone, your pager, even laptop computers. So it's going to be disruptions as the TSA, those security screeners, adjust to all of that. And these could remain in place for some time, as long as a month, Matt.
Well, actually, until they adjust screening process, or the screening process here in the United States and other places to adjust for this, David. That's right. Thanks very much, David Gregory, in Washington for us this morning. And now, here's Ann.
Matt, thank you. Now there's some new developments about the suspects in this plot. Let's go back to London's Heathrow Airport, where NBC's Rahima Ellis has been following the story all morning. Rahima, what are we learning?
Well, Ann, I can tell you that a short while ago we heard from Britain's Home Secretary, that is John Reid, and he said of the 21 suspects who were arrested overnight, They believe they have the main subjects in this alleged terror plot included in that group of 21 suspects. All of those 21 are British-born Muslim, and authorities say most of the arrests occurred in London. But despite that, they say this in no way means that they are letting down their guard, and in fact, they are very emphatic in pointing out that this is an ongoing investigation. You can see it here at the airport because there have been major disruptions throughout this airport, Heathrow, which is Europe's largest airport, and at airports all throughout Great Britain today. People have been told, and who came to this airport unaware of what was going on early this morning, they found out rather suddenly that they could no longer carry on any bags onto the flights. They had to immediately go into a change mode, if you will, taking things out of their handbags and putting them into their luggage that was supposed to be put into the cargo hold. And now what passengers are being told is that only clear plastic bags can go on board. No food, no liquids, no electronics of any kind. No liquids, not even including the fluid that you would use in contact lenses. None of that allowed on board. Only passports, travel information, and some specific medical information. This is very disruptive here at Heathrow. There are 6.5 million passengers who passed through Heathrow last month, and that was before the height of the holiday season. About 186,000 passengers come through this airport every day. We just got a little information about the flights that have been canceled here. According to British airport authorities here at Heathrow, they say a total of 231 arrivals have been canceled here at Heathrow, and a total of 224 departures have also been canceled. A little more information coming on this handout, and it says it is their intention to return to normal operations with the new restrictions tomorrow, and passengers will remain subject to new security procedures. So there is a new norm that is going to be instituted here at Heathrow and at airports throughout Great Britain. And
a firm hand by the airlines and also by the investigators in Britain. Rahima Ellis, thank you so much for your reporting on this story this morning.
Let's get the rest of the headlines of this morning. And since you're here, Natalie Morales is over at the news desk with those headlines. Natalie, good morning to you.
And good morning, Matt and Ann. Once again, Israel is holding off on a major ground offensive in Lebanon until the weekend to allow more time for the UN to work out ceasefire negotiations. But this morning, more Israeli airstrikes in Tyre and Beirut, while Hezbollah fired anti-tank missiles at Israeli forces. 15 Israeli soldiers were killed on Wednesday. It was the deadliest day for Israel in the month-long war. At least 35 people are dead and more than 120 hurt in a suicide bombing today in Iraq. The bomber detonated his explosives as he was being patted down by a police officer in a crowded marketplace near a sacred Shiite mosque in the holy city of Najaf. And a bombing in a Baghdad restaurant also killed at least 6 people. The military has released video of one of the houses where it believes American journalist Jill Carroll was held captive in Iraq. She was freed in March after 82 days in captivity. On Wednesday, the U.S. military announced the arrest of 4 of her suspected kidnappers. 3 Egyptian students who had been sought for possible visa violations have been found. The U.S. government is still looking, though, for 8 of 11 Egyptians who arrived on student visas but never showed up at Montana State University. The FBI says the students do not pose a terror threat. And amid terror and safety concerns, the National Park Service says parts of the Statue of Liberty, including the crown, will remain closed to visitors. The statue was closed after the 9/11 attacks, although the stone pedestal was reopened back in 2004. The Park Service says the threat of fire and possible terror attacks makes the climb too hazardous. China says a strong typhoon has killed 2 people along its southeastern coast today. More than 1 million people were evacuated in advance of the storm, which forecasters say could be the strongest to hit China in 50 years. It is now 9 minutes past the hour. Let's turn it back over to Matt and Ann.
All right, Natalie, thanks so much for that. The sun's come through.
Yeah, it's a little warm here in the Northeast. Let's find out more about the weather. For that, we turn to Al.
You know, Willard's going to be up in a minute, you know, to do the 100th birthday. But you know who's 55 years old today, guys?
No.
Joe Michaels, our director.
Is he really?
And just so happens, his mom is here, Mrs. Michaels.
Oh, Joe, I'm sorry.
You want to wish
Happy
Joey
birthday, honey. I love you.
Yeah. You know what? You should hear what he's saying in my ear right now. It's not exactly happy birthday, but
I know, but I love him anyway.
he's a good boy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good job.
Let's check your weather, see what's happening, and we'll show you for today. We've got a lot of wet weather working its way through the midsection of the country. Heavy thunderstorms through Iowa. Later today, flash flood watches and, in fact, severe storm weather possible from the plains all the way into Illinois and Indiana. Beautiful in the Pacific Northwest. Nice weather here in the Northeast. Toasty as you work your way through the Gulf Coast with high humidity. That's what's going on around the country. Here's what's happening in your neck of the woods.
Thank you very much, Al, and good morning, everyone. Temperatures in the 60s and 70s right now. 69 in Towns, 72 in Waterbury, 73 in New Haven, and 69 up in Goshen.
Very important in this country. And what's your name, young lady?
Tony Pan.
And you're donating your kidney?
I'm donating a kidney to a friend of mine's daughter.
Oh, that's great. Oh, thanks for doing it.
Today at 11 o'clock.
All right. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
All right. Now, let's head on down to Washington, D.C. and say hello to Mr. Willard Scott. How are you, sir?
Hey, a little rain, finally.
Oh, good.
Hallelujah, we got some showers. I'm sorry I wasn't here last week to wish Tony Bennett a happy birthday. He's our...
You during that whole thing. Anyway, good to see you, and we're going to be back with much more of Today on a Thursday morning right after these messages. We are back now with more on this foiled terror plot in the UK. NBC's Tom Costello standing by at Ronald Reagan National Airport, of course, outside our nation's capital this morning. Tom, what's the scene there?
Matt, we've already got significant travel delays, security delays here at Ronald Reagan National Airport and also across the East Coast. Let me show you the pictures of what's happening here at the security checkpoint. The lines here dramatically longer than what we would normally see. And of course, all of that is because of the new increased security measures. No liquids at all allowed to pass through the TSA portals. Let me also show you Boston Washington International Airport this morning. It too, significant travel delays with the line stretching outside of the terminal in some cases. This is the note that everybody who arrives here is getting when they come to the airport. It essentially says, effective immediately, passengers may not have liquids or gels of any size at the screening checkpoint or in the cabin. That includes beverages, shampoo, suntan lotion, creams, toothpaste, hair gel. Those items must be checked and not in the carry-on bags. And if you missed this earlier in the morning, baby formula, breast milk, or juice may be allowed, but only if a small child is traveling with the individual passenger who is bringing that on board. The bottom line, you should expect maximum delays and maximum aggravation as you go through the system for the next few days, perhaps even weeks. The bottom line from the TSA, they are suggesting bring plenty of patience and make sure you declutter your bag. Don't give the TSA screening officer anything that he or she may need to spend more time looking at. Your shoes are likely to have to come off. They're going to spend more time looking at your iPod and your laptop. And don't ask to be the exception because you've got 500 people behind you who also need to get through the system. No coffee going to be allowed through. You can see the ripple effect here. Interesting, though, Matt, this morning we checked with the FAA just a few minutes ago. No significant flight delays other than for weather along the East Coast. So that tells you the flights are leaving with or without you. If you don't make it through the screening process in time, you may miss your flight. Therefore, get lots of extra time. Back to you.
All right, Tom, thanks. And Homeland Security saying the measures now being put into effect are proportionate to the threat that's been uncovered. Tom Costello at Reagan National Airport. And now here's Ann.
All right, thanks a lot, Matt. And British Prime Minister Tony Blair briefed the president overnight about this plot. Well, NBC's Kevin Cork is in Crawford, Texas, near the president's ranch this morning. Kevin, good morning. Any word from the president?
And good morning to you. The president was thoroughly briefed overnight, though not directly by British Prime Minister Tony Blair. We've sort of been getting conflicting reports. The White House is saying it was a thorough briefing. British authorities saying Blair reaching out. But certainly the two gentlemen have spoken several times over the last several days. We know that at this hour, President Bush has just landed in Marine One. In fact, he is now boarded Air Force One en route to a trip to Wisconsin. The president this morning and is not expected to make comment on the latest development, the uncovering of that alleged terror plot. However, he could make comments later today. But we did hear from White House Press Secretary Tony Snow, and he said, among other things, he said, look, this was a serious threat to our country and the UK, and we will continue to evaluate the nature of the threat and adjust our measures. It is fairly common, and for the president to receive a daily briefing, which will include an intelligence briefing, a national security briefing, and a homeland security briefing. That was certainly the case this week, in particular on Tuesday. And you may recall on Sunday, President Bush, in fact, the White House released a photo of President Bush along with National Security Advisor Stephen Hadley having a video teleconference with British Prime Minister Tony Blair. The two gentlemen, as you pointed out, have been in constant contact throughout this ongoing investigation, Ann.
But Kevin, it's really interesting to notice that Scotland Yard is reporting that they have been, or telling the press that they actually have been investigating for several months this plot to blow up these airplanes. And it's interesting to wonder, to ask how long have U.S. authorities known and how long has the president known? And it sounds as though we're going to have to wait before we really get an indication about that.
Yeah, well said, because a lot of people here are going to be asking the question not only today but in the days to come. If the administration has known about this potential plot, what was the holdup in getting the word out, especially domestically? Now, right now they're saying, Ann, that there's no expectation that there will be domestic arrests related to this particular terror plot, but still it does beg the question, how long ago did they know of this, and why are we just hearing about it right now?
All right, NBC's Kevin Cork this morning in Crawford, Texas. And we're back with much more on this breaking story after these messages.
Still ahead, more on this developing story. British officials saying they have disrupted a sophisticated terror plot that was in the final stages of planning and involved the blowing up of airliners en route from the UK to the US.
And that they have 21 people in custody, and a short time ago we heard from Rahema Ellis they believe they have the key suspect among them, but they're not sure they have everyone. We'll do more reporting on this after your local news.